Peace and blessings. How you doing? Father Augustino here, and today is Tuesday of the second week of Lent, and this is your daily Lenten meditation. We're pondering on Matthew chapter 17, when Jesus was transfigured before the disciples, and we're going to be looking at verse 3. Then the three disciples saw Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. What were they talking about? I mean, like, isn't that like one of like the oh my gosh, like, hey, you see some friends of yours like talking like over there, like, hey guys, like, I'm curious, what are you talking about? Well, we actually know what they were talking about from the Gospel of Luke. They were talking about his impending death, the death of Jesus on the cross. Has it ever happened to you that, like, you know, you knew you had to do something, but you were just like, oh my gosh, I just don't want to do this, and like you were either in bed or you're just thinking about what you got to do, you just want to stay there, you just want to go to sleep? I mean, like, I'll be honest with you, like, we wake up early for prayer, like sometimes I'm like, I am going to pretend I didn't hear the bell, and I'm just going to say I was sick. Like, that's what goes on in your brain, right? You start thinking of all the reasons why you should, you know it's true! You know it's true! Start thinking of all the reasons why you should stay in bed, and then usually you're like, okay, here we go. And you get up and you go about your day, and it's not that bad, right? Especially after a good cup of coffee. We all have things that we have to do that are difficult to do, and sometimes we don't want to do them. Like, who wants to do things that are difficult? If you do, pray for me, you know, because it just doesn't come natural to me. But we do them. We do them because we have to. We do them because it's right. It may not be easy, but it's what you got to do. Well, Jesus had something that he had to do. His entire life was leading to the cross. His entire existence was meant to bring us salvation. This is why he became man. He took flesh, he took on the human nature on so that he could save us, and Revelation was speaking about this even from the Old Testament. Remember, Jesus said that he didn't come to abolish the law, but he came to fulfill it. Well, this is what Moses and Elijah represent. Moses represents the law, and Elijah represents the prophets. This is a summary of the entire revelation given up until that point, which will culminate in the cross. Now, with the law, it's very interesting. We hear the law, oh my gosh, rules, right? You know, nobody likes rules. Why are you like limiting my freedom? But we need to understand that the law was the result of a people experiencing liberation, experiencing salvation, and as part of the relationship that came from the Israelites being freed from slavery was a covenant with God that used the words that's similar to a nuptial exchange. So like the words that you would use at a wedding is kind of like what God was speaking to the Israelite people at the time after he had saved them. Like, I'm going to belong to you, you're going to belong to me, but that means something. I mean, like, maybe some people do this, but like a marriage shouldn't be just an open marriage. Like, hey, I want to marry you, you marry me, but we're going to keep our options open. I mean, that is really messed up. Let's just be real. No judgment, but it's just like, it's not right. It's not a covenant. It's not an exclusive relationship. That's what marriage is. Now, Jesus is speaking to Moses, and it's important to remember that this covenant had certain symbols. The faithfulness to this covenant meant blessing, meant being a part of God's people, and unfaithfulness was always in the Old Testament used as like adultery, was it? But let's read from Exodus chapter 19, verse 3 and on, to get an idea what this meant. The Lord and Moses went up the mountain to meet with God. Parallel? I think so. The Lord called to him from the mountain and told him to say to the Israelites, Jacob's descendants, you saw what I, the Lord, did to the Egyptians, and how I carried you as an eagle carries her young on her wings, and brought you here to me. Now, if you will obey me and keep my covenant, you will be my own people. The whole earth is mine, but you will be my chosen people, a people dedicated to me alone, and you will serve me as priests. So Moses went down and called the leaders of the people together and told them everything that the Lord had commanded him. Remember Matthew, verse 17, verse 1. It's like he brought them apart with himself. They were peculiarly his own. It's the same word that's being used in that part of Exodus. So this language of being God's own people is being used here. Now, Elijah. How can we sum up the prophets? Well, the prophets, they came and they brought fire. They were the ones preaching to the Israelite people when they had become unfaithful to this covenant. And there's like, you got to change your ways. A prophet is somebody who brings meaning when tragedy strikes, but also is somebody who can be a voice of God telling us to correct our path. But always because of love. Always because of mercy, which we see in the prophet Hosea, chapter 2, verse 14, when Hosea in his life, God asked him to take on a woman, to marry a woman who was a prostitute. And this woman began to symbolize Israel in her infidelities. And she committed adultery with other men. She had children with other men. And Hosea was like, that's not right. This is messed up. So he accused her. And the penalty for adultery was death by stoning. And at the moment that the condemnation was going to come, this is what we read in Hosea chapter 2, verse 14. So I'm going to take her into the desert again. There I will win her back with words of love. I will give back to her the vineyard she had and make a troubled valley a door of hope. I guess taking people into the desert was like, back in the day, like romance. Anyway, so the point is that in the time of condemnation, when you come to the Lord, the prophets always preached reconciliation, like come back to the Lord. And this is based on love. So there we have Moses and Elijah talking to Jesus. Jesus had something to do. What is this thing that he had to do? And please don't misunderstand me. Sometimes we struggle doing the right thing. But Jesus had his mind, had his face set on Jerusalem. And as we heard in Matthew chapter 16, Peter was like, wait, hold on, man. You don't have to go to Jerusalem. No, come on, man. And Jesus corrected him. Jesus corrected Peter and said, get behind me, you Satan. The second person of the most holy Trinity. Calling you Satan, I would have been like in a catatonic state, in a corner, sucking my thumb in a fetal position. Jesus, call me. I don't know. But so credit to Peter that he was there. And this was being able to be reconciled so that he could see that Jesus had a mission. As he says in Luke chapter 12, he had a baptism with which to be baptized, and how he longed for that baptism to be completed. My brothers and sisters, God longs to complete this work in you. Make no mistake. He longs for his salvation to be more present in your life. He is aching, if you will, for you to be more aware of a conversation that needs to be happening. And what needs to die? We need to put to death the old man and begin to walk with Christ. We see him transfigured, but it's always for a purpose. What is it, brothers and sisters, that you need to do? And you just don't know how. I invite you, say a prayer, to do it today. It's Father Agostino with your daily meditations. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.